Chapter 2 of Founders at Work by Jessica Lemstein. Sabeer Bhatia. He is the co-founder of Hotmail. When co-workers Sabeer Bhatia and Jack Smith began working on their first startup idea, a web-based personal database they called JavaSoft. They were frustrated because their employers' farewell prevented them from accessing their personal email accounts. To solve their problem, they came up with the idea of email accounts that could be accessed anonymously through a web browser. This idea became the startup in 1996. The first web-based email was born, offering people free email accounts that could be accessed from any computer with an internet connection. Just less than 2 years later, they had grown Hotmail's user base faster than any media company in the history. Just let me revise the fact once again so that you can get me. When workers Sabeer Bhatia and Jack Smith began working on their first startup idea, a web-based personal database they called JavaSoft. They are frustrated because their employers' firewall prevented them from accessing their personal email accounts. To solve their problems, they came up with the idea of email accounts that could be accessed anonymously through a web browser. This idea became a startup in 1996. The first web-based email was born, offering people free email accounts that could be accessed from any computer with an internet connection. Less than 2 years later, they had grown Hotmail user base faster than any media company in the history. On New Year's evening 1997, Microsoft acquired Hotmail for 400 millions. Then Jessica Livingston, take me back to how the idea got started and evolved into Hotmail. How did you know Jack? Then Bhatia answered, I met Jack Smith when I joined Apple Computer. We were working on the same project building PowerBooks portables. Our managers left the company to join a startup in the valley called Firepower System. Jack and I knew Apple would have given us steady, stable employment, but it wasn't with grand stock options. So we decided to leave Apple and join this startup. We worked very hard cranking out products, chips that were used to design PCs that ran on the PowerPC processor. This could be run multiple operating system, and at the same time the idea was that if the insides of the computer were better and faster, then people would switch because it ran multiple operating systems, including either the Unix or Windows architecture. If the processor was better, obviously that would eliminate the need to get Intel based processors because the architecture of RISC based system was better. But what happened over time is that Intel itself caught up on the price for the performance curve. After 2 years, the company really wasn't doing very much. Our manager, who hired the two of us, left and went on his own. So I was kind of looking around to see what I should do with my life, whether I should go to business school or look at the other things. The internet was just unfolding, so I started spending more and more time on it. And it was interesting, it was exciting to see these little companies get started. Two of my colleagues from Stanford got gone on to start Yahoo, and I thought, wow, this is just a list, a directory which tells you that what, where, and somebody put $1 million in them. Mean that was huge. So I thought, this internet thing is here to stay, and I started playing around with it and came up with the idea to do a simple to install database at the backend. Thus, you would use the browser as the front end. It could store any piece of information at the back, but the browser would be used to display it. So people could just look for it and be able to create personal database of anything, contact information, phone numbers, special files, or whatever it is that you would do on a local PC. It will store on the backend database. So I wrote business plan and didn't know what to do with it. I was the only guy. So how do you build a company? I knew Jack and knew that was a great software and hardware engineer. So I shared this idea with him. I read the business plan and said the next day, this is great. Where do I sign? So we started, and I said the next thing we need to do is go raise some money and try to figure out how to hire more peoples and take this to next level. Then Jessica Livingston asked, had you quit your jobs? Is product Bhatia? No. We were actually both working, so we decided to spend all the time on the weekends and evening building this product. Then it came to a point that one of us had to quit our job to focus full time on it. So I told Jack, I am single and don't have a family. Why don't you quit and start working on this? And I will give you half of my salary. So at least he could support his family. I did and need that much money. We started building the product and then started looking around for fundings. We went to a number of VC venture capitalists, and many of them turned us down because they were like, how are you going to make money if you are going to give it away for free? What's the revenue mechanism? We said we would capture detailed demographic information about people, and that detailed quality of information on individuals would help us advertise to them. But of course, advertising was not a proven revenue model at that time. Oh my god, they were living ahead of time. Then Jessica Livingston, how did the JavaSoft idea morph into Hotmail? Then Bhatia replied that while we were putting the business plan for JavaSoft together and were working at the firepower system, they installed a firewall around our corporate internet that prevented us from dialing out to our personal email accounts. I had an account at Stanford and Jack had one at AOL. So we would dial out and email each other. But we couldn't do that anymore because the firewall prevented us from accessing our personal accounts. So we ended up in exchanging information on floppy disks and on physical pieces of paper. That's when it occurred to us. Wait a minute. We can access any website in the world through a web browser. If you made an email available through a web browser, that would solve our problems. And then it occurred to us, if that would solve our problem, it would solve the problem of many others. We didn't know how many others, but email was something that everyone used to provide ubiquitous access to that email from any web browser from anywhere in the world was the killer idea. Then Jessica Livingston asked to Sabeer Bhatia, the killer idea emerged because you guys were trying to solve the personal email exchange problem for yourselves. Oh my god. Sometimes being personal is also beneficial. Then Sabeer Bhatia, absolutely. That we could access our email from only two places, our homes and our work. And while we are at work, we could not access our personal email accounts, which is at my home. Then Jessica Livingston asked, once you were onto the concept of web-based email, did you immediately discard the JavaSoft database idea and go full throttle with Hotmail? Then Sabir Bhatia replied that we were kind of torn. Our plans was to use the JavaSoft idea to get money from venture capitalists. But actually the killer arrow in our quiver was always email because we thought that it was even bigger than the original idea. Then Jessica Livingston asked, but you didn't want to tell people about the killer idea because you were afraid they would copy you. Then Sabir Bhatia said that they would copy us, or what if they just shared this idea with Netscape or shared it with anyone else? You have to realize that in those days we had nothing, just the idea. When we are approaching venture capitalists, they would shoot us down for one reason or another, for a reason we thought were frivolous, like you guys, what is your background? So we would tell them that our background was hardware engineering. Why are you building software then? That's a genuine question. Many of them also said, but you are too young. Do we have any management experience? No. We said we were two young kids. We have a great idea. The whole venture capitalist community has so many links with each other, you never know. Netscape was building email servers. What if the VCs were just to say to them, hey, why don't you do web-based email? Just a simple thing. And that's it. That's the idea, right? There was not that much protect in the term of IP. Whoever built it first would win the market. So we were afraid, and that's why we kept that as the secret. But we were going to do web-based email no matter what, even if you got funding from the other idea. Then Jessica Livingston asked, I read that you judged the VCs by their reaction to the JavaSoft idea. Did you plan this clever approach? Then Sabir Bhatia replied, we actually plan to do this. You can't get the audience with any venture capitalist without sharing a business plan. But we didn't want our business plan floating around somewhere with the email idea. So we would go in with the JavaSoft business plan. If they pass the litmus test, if of not rejecting us for the wrong reasons, and said, okay, we don't mind that you are young, we don't mind that you don't have 20 founders at work, 20 management experiences. Only when they would start poking holes in the actual idea would we share the Hotmail idea with them. That was actually just because we didn't trust them. Then Jessica Livingston asked, you finally pitched Draper Fisher, Zero Thompson, DFJ, and they passed the test. Tell me about getting funding. Then Sabir Bhatia replied, they liked the idea right off the bat. They said, we are going to get some of our partner to come in and take a look at this because it could be big. So Tim Draper came in the following weeks and he liked the idea. After another meeting, he said, okay, we are ready to fund you. We like this very much. How much do you want? I did some calculations on the back of an envelope and asked for 3 millions, which was our plan based on hiring a few engineers. They said, no, that's too much. How much money do you need just to prove to us that you can do this, that it's even possible to make email available on the web? So I asked for the half million, and he said, I will give you 300,000. I said, all right, I will take it. They wanted 30% of the company, which would value us at 1 million. It was an intense negotiation. I threatened to go to the other VCs if they didn't pony up the money. We finally settled on the 15% split with them, and they valued the company at 2 million post money. But they would put in a right of first refusal. Since I was a young entrepreneur at the time, I didn't understand that this basically meant that you couldn't go to any other VC. So even though they didn't get their chunk in the first piece, in any subsequent round, they would have the ability to take up the entire round. Then Jessica Livingston, your lawyer didn't point out that case, that clause. Then Sabir Bhatia, we didn't have a very good lawyer back then. Of course, it would be touted to us as we love you so much that we want to have the right to buy the next round. You can go to other people too. But that's the one that got us. It impeded our ability to go to another VCs. What ended up happening was that we could not get a higher valuation because the FJ wanted to put more money in the company themselves. So anytime we would talk to another VC, they would talk him out of it. This is not a good company, don't worry about it. So we were really stuck with the FJ for the next round. Then Jessica Livingston asked, they put you down to the other VCs, right? Then Sabir Bhatia, they did. Of course, that was very early on, and now everything is all fine and dandy. But at that point in time, we had a term sheet for a much higher valuation. But when we would talk to any other VCs, the other VC would call the guys at DFJ, and they said they no, don't invest on them. Then Jessica, were they helpful at all? Sabir Bhatia, yes. Steve Jerome Stinson was very helpful. He introduced us to a lot of people, and on the whole, they are the very good VCs firm in the sense that they try to put deals together, but sometimes they don't play by the rules. Nobody knows this, but the round before the deal with Microsoft, they literally put 5 million in the company just because they knew it was going to get sold and that we needed some bridge money. This came at a very expensive valuation with certain rights that should not have come with it, like participating preferred, which is the first get their money out and then they participate in the rest, which was okay for the earlier rounds but not for the later ones. That was just bridge money that we needed while we are negotiating with Microsoft. They knew full well that we were going to get acquired. We were negotiating about the final price. Then Jessica Livingston asked, I will come back to the Microsoft negotiation in a moment. Did your background in hardware help you in terms of building servers that could handle massive loads? And Samir Bhatia said it helped us because we knew what kind of hardware we would need to be able to handle the kind of traffic to our site. Also, when you are hardware designers, you have tremendously more discipline in writing and describing software because in hardware you cannot get it wrong. Every time, every chips cost you millions of dollars. So when the hardware designers design any piece of software, they normally get it right. They use something called state machines to describe the functioning of software. When you do that, you are very deterministic. If this is the input, then this will be the output. So you are writing in very deterministic fashion, and you therefore you tend to not to make too many mistakes whereas the pure software writers, the way they think and architect software is very creative. They put a lots of bells and whistles, but they think no big deal. If there is a bug, we will fix it. Put in a patch. You can't do that in hardware. There is no patch. Once you ship a chip, it was to work all time. So in terms of being able to test it out, there is somewhat of a difference. But I just think that hardware designers would be pretty good software designers as well. Then Jessica Livingston asked, were you at all worried about intellectual property issue when you left the company to start Hotmail? Then Bhatia replied very politely, no, they were totally different. We were designing chips which had nothing to do with the internet. Then Jessica Livingston, so you now have $300,000 and you are working full time on Hotmail. What happened in the 6 months before you launched? Bhatia replied, we got funded on February 14, 1996 and the site launched on the 4th of July. We had 100,000 subscribers in the first 3 months and we were growing very rapidly from then on. We were literally getting 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 signs up every day. Then Jessica Livingston, how? Bhatia, it all spread by the word of mouth. We launched a massive PR campaign with a PR firm and started talking to different journalists. We did a West Coast and East Coast press tour and it just took off from there. Jessica Livingston, you had a tagline on the body of the email encouraging recipients to set up their own free Hotmail accounts. How did you come up with this? Then Bhatia replied, it was actually Jack's idea to do that. We ran it by our VCs just to make sure it was okay. When you enter somebody's email, you have got to be very careful. You are sending an email to a friend of yours and we are kind of violating the sanctity of that email by putting a tagline in that and it says this message has been sent from Hotmail. Get your free email at hotmail.com. So we asked him if it was okay that we did this. We said we don't want to be perceived as the evil company by altering their emails, and he said absolutely you should do it. And the next morning we know he claims that this idea was his. He has given a number of interviews literally claiming that he was the father of web-based email. Without him it would not have happened. I can't believe he's just taken credit for everything, including the tagline, which later became known as the classic example of viral marketing. He blatantly claims that this at conferences, which I don't think is right. Then Jessica Livingston, he claimed that web-based email was his idea. Then Sabeer Bhatia said that it was our idea, but without them, it would not have happened, and that not had happened, and that we would have done JavaSoft. Their version is that we told them to do web-based email at the first meeting. Why would you tell us to do web-based email? Jessica Livingston, you grow Hotmail's user base faster than any other company in his story at that time. Do you believe it was more because you had a great product or you had a good PR campaign? Then Bhatia replied, that's one thing about the internet. If you have something that's good, it spreads by the word of mouth. And like wildfire, you just have to hire a small PR firm and do it. Then Jessica Livingston asked, had you always planned for Hotmail to be free for users? Then Bhatia said yes. Then Jessica Livingston asked, how did you convince people you could make money from targeted advertising that was so novel at the time? It was very new. Then Bhatia replied, it was novel, but at the same time, it wasn't novel because Yahoo had gotten funding and later went public. On that basis, their whole concept was to grow by advertising, even though it was a directory because people would pay for advertising. Our whole idea was that if page impressions are a commodity that can be sold, can be monetized, then we could generate far greater page impressions than they were able to because you interact a lot more when you do email. You click on something and a page comes up, and you click on something, another page comes up. So we were thinking of the number of pages and the number of page impressions as the monetizable quantity. In our estimate, we believed we could overtake Yahoo in a number of pages, number of page impressions that we would deliver, which was what Yahoo was touting. What has happened in the last 10 years is that advertising has grown even more. It's not just page impressions but the number of click through. The most monetizable part of advertising, at least online advertising today, is the click through to another advertiser, which is search. When people search, they are most likely to click through because that's when they are looking for something. Google has proven remarkably well that click through is a monetizable quantity more than page impressions. You can have 100 page impressions, and that has some value. But the click through has far greater value because that's how advertisers measure, is this advertising working for us or not? Then Livingston asked, did you have a hard time signing up advertisers at first? Then Bhatia said, it takes a long time before you can break through to an advertiser and get them to start paying. In fact, the first 3 or 4 months we were doing advertising for our advertisers for free. We had them giving us their banners just to so that this was a mechanism for people to get their product in front of millions and millions of consumers. People would ask, so how are you going to make money? And the whole thing about making money was all those pacey ads. Ads were perceived to be kind of a negatives, and that's the reason why then there used to be 25 search engines, only 2 or 3 have survived. The other had died because they made their front pages look like Las Vegas casinos, as opposed to preserving that simple, clean interface that Google has. I think the strategy that Google took was far better. They earned the trust of the end consumers. Then Livingston asked, did Hotmail ever become profitable from advertising? And Bhatia said, no. We didn't become profitable, but we weren't losing that much money. We found that we were not the best at selling ads, so we outsourced the whole thing to another company and said, you guys go sell the ads for us. We will just focus on delivering these ads to you no matter how much you sell them for. Just give us a percentage of revenue with a minimum commitment, and we won't go to anybody else. That minimum commitment they give us, which was about 1 million per month, was alone sufficient for us to break even. Our costs were so low, we were spending about 1 million a month. So though we were not wildly profitable, we were not losing that much of money. Then Jessica Livingston asked, getting back to the first 6 months before you launched, tell me about the major turning points. Then Bhatia said that before we launched, I think the first major turning point was getting the $300,000 funding. That was huge for us. To young kids to get that much money, the second turning point really was when I started using it. And I told my friends and family about it. And everybody who used the product, 50 or hundreds of people loved it. 24 founders at work. And then of course the interesting thing was that when the finally did launch, each of us had pagers that would send us a page every hour, so we would know how quickly our user base has grown. It was just phenomenal. 100 people signed up last hour, 200 people this hour. Everyone knew how many users were signing on, and they was very motivating to the other whole people and the whole company. Livingston, was there ever a time when you thought you were in the trouble? Then Bhatia said, the only time I was when we had to go in for the second round of the financing. We didn't have money, and Tim was the Olympics in the Atlanta, and he refused to fund us because we wanted a slightly higher valuation. This was what all the other VC were telling us. But he wanted to invest at a lower valuation. We had only a couple weeks worth of money left, and I would not have been able to meet the next payroll. So as soon as he came back, we literally had to accept his terms and move on. Then Jessica Livingston asked, couldn't you have argued legally that by not agreeing to a higher valuation that they had refused you? Then Bhatia said, at that point you are stuck. You have got to make a decision one way or the another and move on. Then Jessica Livingston asked, so really the biggest challenge is in early years of Hotmail was the funding. Then Bhatia said, yeah, it was the funding, and of course then the tough part was in scaling up to that growth. Our servers would break down, and we had to worry about scalability problems and how to add servers and make it more reliable. It was not all smooth sailing. Then Jessica Livingston, did you ever go out of service? Then Bhatia said, we went out of service for a few hours sometime, and we didn't have proper backups or the ability to restore things. Reliability was an issue, and it took us some time to cross the reliability curve. Then Jessica Livingston asked, was there ever a time when you felt couldn't keep up? Then Bhatia said, we just handled the problems as they came around. We put in a new system, re-architected some of the things. The engineers worked really hard, and we kind of make it work. But even now, there are times when you log on Hotmail and said, sorry, server is down. These are just issues when you have very large user base. Then Livingston, web-based email was so new in the world. What did consumers misunderstand? Then Bhatia said, we had a sale guy who signed up for his mom. And his mom said, yes, I can see that there is an email from you. But how do I read it? And he said, Mom, you go and click on it. Just didn't know how had to click on it. I heard another story from a man who said his sister would get into the Hotmail account not directly by going to http://hotmail.com, but by going to Yahoo, typing the word Hotmail, and then it would bring up the Hotmail page, and then she would log in, and he would say, why do you do it that way? And the sister would say, my friend taught me this is how you get to Hotmail. So that's what I have been doing. The usage pattern of how people use the internet were baffling to us. Then Livingston said, who were you most nervous about from a competitive standpoint? Then Bhatia said, anybody in the internet space. We were the most nervous about companies like Netscape because Netscape was building email email servers, and they would provide web-based access to their servers. Their whole point was they provided web-based management to server that you could set up. So the system administrator, you could check to see how many and had people sign up for the what. नींद आ रही है भाई.